Thank you very much, Michelle, and welcome everyone. We're glad to have you here. We're excited to talk to you today, as Michelle mentioned, about PCI compliance and how to avoid some of the pitfalls that companies often run into with their SAP systems in maintaining their PCI compliance and also, more importantly, keeping their customer data secure. So the agenda that we're going to follow today is just a quick review of the PCI Dss requirements and then some of the common data security challenges that companies face within their SAP environment. We're going to talk about some of the best practices that you should follow when dealing with raw credit card numbers and how to solve for some of these challenges. We'll end with why we think you should use Paymetric as a service provider to help you meet these challenges. And then finally, should you have any questions as I go along, as Michelle said, please feel free to enter those in your GoToMeeting panel and we'll address those at the end. So what is PCI compliance? Most of us are very familiar with it already. We know that it has 12 sections to it, and that it's something that on an annual basis you as a corporation need to attest to, either do a self-assessment to attest that you are compliant, or if you're a larger merchant, have a third party come in and audit your environment and attest to your compliance on your behalf. The different categories that you see listed here have been drawn up or categorized by the PCI Council. Today we're going to focus on Section 3, the Requirement 3, the protection of stored cardholder data. This can bleed a little bit into Requirement 4, the encrypting the transmission of cardholder data, but specifically today we're going to talk about the protection of that stored cardholder data, and even more specifically the credit card number itself, or the PAN, the personal account number. The data security challenges that we see most companies face in SAP tend to originate or begin during the order entry or collections process, and it's because those workflows do require, in the SAP application specifically, whether that's your SD module, sales and distribution, your financials module, CRM application, be what it may, those workflows require that the card details be entered at some point into SAP and used for the origination of a payment transaction. And even storing cards on customer master records does require you to enter the card details at some point somewhere so that they can be registered on the customer's record and retrieved during later use. So the challenge is, how do you securely enter that information into your SAP application? How can you do that perhaps without exposing your SAP application to the entry and capture and transmission of that raw data? Preferably, how can you only store tokenized or secured data in your system without ever having to enter the raw data at any point? The graphic we show here does show the front and back of a simulated card. In particular, this one would be an American Express because it has the security code on the front. We also want to highlight, we're seeing and will continue to see the trend of a move to chip and pin type cards. The magnetic stripe on the back will become less and less used as the years go on. Certainly the migration is going to take a significant period of time, who knows how long, but by next October in 2015 there should begin a migration to the chip and pin cards. And certainly the most important part of the information is that PAN, or the personal account number. How do we secure that? All right. So best practices that we have. The golden rule is try to avoid the exposure of that raw card in your SAP system as much as possible. You need to ensure that you don't have interfaces that are allowing the raw cards to be passed into SAP. Certainly we're going to want to lock down the manual hand keying via keyboard or a swipe device, but also check your BAPI interfaces. There are sales order creation BAPIs, which can pass in card details from an e-commerce site or some other external system. You may be passing in information through iDocs, and that information may contain credit card details. Maybe it's order data from a partner. And you may be using either file or Excel type upload interfaces. Again, make sure that those files do not contain raw credit card numbers. We often talk with clients about how to prevent the manual entry by their end users of raw cards in the system, and we're going to talk about some of those techniques in a moment. That tends to be the focus. However, you can't forget that there are interfaces that may also contain raw cards, and you need to check those as well to ensure that you're disallowing the entry or the transmission of raw cards through those types of interfaces also. Xi Intercept is a solution that will help prevent the direct entry of raw cards in the SAP GUI specifically, or some of the SAP HTML user interfaces. Xi Intercept for SAP specifically can be used during the capture of card information in the SAP GUI. That's the standard GUI that most of us that have been working with SAP for a number of years are familiar with. It's a client-based GUI. It's not something that you access over a web browser. So Xi Intercept for SAP, which we'll show an example of later, can be used specifically for that. The Xi Intercept for e-commerce solution can be used when you're capturing information in an SAP HTML type GUI, more of an online browser-based type interface, and we would use that in a similar way to capture the data before it enters the SAP application. And in all cases, we want to configure in the SAP IMG SAP card validation rules that prevent the entry of raw card data. What happens is if you do enter a raw card number, if we detect that it's only numeric values and it's not a token, then we can actually flag that as an error. The end user would see an error on the screen, and the entry of that information would be disallowed. It would actually throw a hard error and require it to be deleted and then entered in the appropriate method that prevents the raw card from being entered in the SAP credit card fields. All right, so with Xi Intercept, we would then move on to not allowing users to view, sorry, this is jumping too many slides on me. Here we go. Don't allow users to view detokenized cards in SAP either. In the past, it's been very common that maybe a supervisor, a manager of the credit department, certain super users were given access to view the detokenized or raw card number inside various screens within SAP. We now recommend strongly that you do not allow that. Actually deactivate those type of calls. Don't allow detokenization within the SAP application itself, and only allow users to reference and view raw card data in the Paymetric reporting portal, also known as the XIPay Web GUI. It could also be that you build in your own web service call through an online application that you build. Suffice it to say, what we're trying to do, again, is prevent the viewing, the exposure, the transmission of raw card numbers at any point in your SAP system. So locking down and deactivating detokenization within your SAP application will do that. And then train your users to prevent the entry of raw card numbers in other fields in your SAP application, like text fields where validations and tokenization isn't performed. Unfortunately, it is still commonplace that we'll find that companies have end users that are entering the card information in a text field, in a notes section, things of that nature. So not necessarily something that you can prevent programmatically. You'll have to deal with that through training and best practices. But even entering the raw card information in a note section would bring your SAP system into scope for PCI, and certainly would make that data be at risk, so you want to prevent that as much as possible. We want to convert to tokens and purge any existing raw or encrypted data that's in your SAP database. This applies mostly to companies that are new to accepting credit cards in SAP or may have been doing it for a while without an integrated solution. SAP does provide the ability to encrypt at the SAP database level credit card information. that still resides in your SAP system, will expand the scope of your PCI efforts within your SAP system. But by tokenizing that information and then purging it, it's going to help you take less, or put your SAP system at less risk, and also minimize the scope of effort for your PCI audit, because now you don't have to focus on unencrypted or even encrypted data within your SAP database. And just bear in mind that SAP can store credit card information on customer master records, in historical transaction data, and you still need to scan your text fields. So you'll want to use tools that are commonly used for pattern searches at the database level. Use those on your SAP database so that you can check not only the credit card specific fields, but other text and notes type fields to ensure that raw card data doesn't exist there. And finally, if you're capturing the security values, the CVV or CID fields, there is an OSS note that is that applies to the CVV value to ensure that it is never stored in the SAP database. Most companies have the proper support packages installed, and they don't have to worry about that because that note is standard in the support packages that they've already applied. However, at the beginning, when SAP first added the ability to capture and transmit the CVV values, it was being stored at the database level. Just double check, make sure that that note's applied and you're not storing that value, because that would be in violation of your merchant agreement, number one. And number two, should you have your data compromised, that CVV value is critical for a hacker. They want to know what it is so that it makes it easier for them to use that stolen data to commit fraud on other merchant sites. All right, so let's see if I can get this slide to move. Michelle, I might need your help. Oh, there it goes. So a quick solution overview. Xi Intercept. And it looks like we're jumping too many slides again. The Xi Intercept solution is Paymetric's tokenization solution, and it does reside in the cloud. So it easily scales not only across your SAP landscape, but any other integrated systems that you have. So Xi Intercept does give merchants the argument that SAP is out of scope for a PCI DSS audit. That's not something that Paymetric can claim for you. That's something that you either need to claim yourself on a self-assessment or have your QSA claim in their audit. However, because tokenization of data prevents the raw data from being exposed in your SAP system, from being stored at the database level, it does give you that argument that it can be considered out of scope. Certainly it does eliminate the data exposure in the event of a data breach. If your data is compromised from your SAP database and you've used tokenization, a hacker, someone who is downloading that information, a disgruntled employee, whoever it may be, does not gain access to the actual card data. At most, they've gained access to the token, which is a reference to where in Paymetric's cloud environment that encrypted value can be found, and if it's found, it can be detokenized or decrypted back to the raw value. So if someone were to compromise your database, they would not be able to immediately go on to another online merchant and use that information to commit fraud, because the online merchant would not recognize that token. It's only applicable to you, the merchant. And finally, Xi Intercept is going to help centralize configuration and auditing. You'll be able to ensure that there are only certain touch points at which information is captured, and at those points, that credit card information, when it's captured, it's immediately tokenized at that point. So you can limit the number of interfaces, the number of points in your environment through which information is captured and tokenized. And we wanted to give you a good overview of what this would look like when combined with your systems on the left and your processor or acquirer partners on the right, and Paymetric's services sit in the middle. So on the far left, you can see some arrows with a red 1, 2, 3, 4 coming into a lock outside the merchant environment. That's where we're trying to use these Xi Intercept solutions to intercept to capture and tokenize the data before you allow it into your merchant environment, your cardholder data environment. And then within those applications, when it's time for you to process a payment with those details, you would send those out through the interface to Paymetric's cloud environment to Xi Pay to process the payment, and the detokenization back to the raw card, which the processor or acquirer requires, would happen then within the Paymetric environment. So you maintain and transmit secure tokens within the merchant environment. You pass that through Paymetric on the way to your processor or acquirer, and we take care of the exposure of the raw card detail in our environment so that you don't have to. And in that way, you can mitigate and minimize the PCI risk that you face within your environment. So what we're trying to do is create a tokenization layer around your entire enterprise. Again, we only want to let tokens in. If there's raw card data, we want to disallow the exposure or entry of that raw card data within your environment. And we're going to secure that with our tokenization solution, Xi Secure, and also the Xi Intercept solution, which sits on top of Xi Secure. It makes calls to it, but Xi Intercept, again, specifically intercepts the data before it can be exposed within your applications. So that'll help you eliminate systems from PCI audit scope, minimize your PCI audit or compliance costs, and then drastically reduce the risk because you're no longer storing that sensitive data within your systems. It's no longer being passed over your networks. So we wanted to give you a picture of a screenshot of the Xi Intercept for SAP solution in a system that's being accessed by the SAP client GUI. So in the background, you'll see a screen from transaction VA01 in SAP. It's coming from the payment cards header screen. And this is meant to represent that rather than typing the raw card details directly into the SAP GUI, this Xi Intercept web browser-based pop-up screen was invoked. And maybe a little difficult to see, but within that browser session, the end user entered the card type, the raw card number, the expiration date, the security code, and the cardholder name. And once that's submitted to Paymetric, Paymetric receives it, takes the raw card number and tokenizes it, and then that information can be pulled back in to the SAP fields that you'll notice kind of behind the Xi Intercept's pop-up screen there. The card number field contains a token. So rather than entering the raw card data directly into SAP, it's entered in a pop-up browser session, and that prevents SAP from ever having to capture or transmit the raw card data. In the past, a lot of our customers would enter it directly into the SAP fields and then submit it out for tokenization. This is just a way of ensuring that it's tokenized before it's entered into the SAP screen. Again, Xi Intercept intercepting it prior. And then Xi Intercept for e-commerce is a similar concept, but this time for your e-commerce or customer-facing websites. The same scenario applies here. By the time your customer gets to a checkout page in the shopping cart on your site, or if they're managing stored cards on file on your site, instead of you displaying the information on those pages or the fields where the card details can be entered, you'll embed some JavaScript in those pages so that when it's being rendered on the customer's browser, that JavaScript tag will be invoked and it'll say to the customer's browser, call out to the merchant's account at Paymetric, return the information on how to render these fields, and render them in line on the screen. And use the same style sheet on the page. The merchant can decide where on the page it's positioned, what it looks like, what language the labels are in. It will look and feel, for all intents and purposes, just like another part of the merchant site. There is no redirect to a Paymetric URL. There's no Paymetric logo shown. It does look and feel exactly like your site, but when the customer enters the information and then hits submit or checkout or update, whatever you want to label the button, immediately a call is made from the customer's browser to the merchant's accounts at Paymetric to tokenize the card number, and then that's returned to the browser so that by the time the customer's browser posts the information back to the merchant's website, it's already been secured as well. So at this point, the merchant's web servers are not being exposed to the raw card information. Again, we're eliminating that risk that's related to PCI by disallowing the exposure of the raw cards. So how is this going to help you in the end with your PCI compliance efforts? It may help you qualify for a different SAQ form. Of course, the ultimate goal would be SAQ Form A because it has the least number of questions. Typically, that's not something that a company that's trying to capture and initiate the payment process themselves can ever hope to qualify for. However, it may help you, instead of qualifying for a SAC D form, which has the most questions, 263, it may help you qualify for either a SAC A-EP, an e-commerce SAQ form, or a SAC C form. Both of them have roughly about 139 and 40 questions. So certainly there's a great reduction from the SAC D form in the number of questions that you would have to answer in order to attest your compliance to PCI. And oops, looks like we've got the numbers wrong on this one. So again, just will help you certify much more quickly because you'll have less questions to answer. So why Paymetric? Well, we've got several reasons up here. We have unrivaled experience in the SAP markets, more than 15 years focused on secure payments within the SAP market itself, and we are the recognized leader within the SAP market. Over 600 enterprise customers trust Paymetric to help securely integrate payment processing into not only their ERP environments, but their e-commerce, their legacy, and other applications. Paymetric helps our clients process a total of over $30 billion in transaction volume annually. We are owned by a equity firm, Francisco Partners, and we're managed under a $7 billion fund, very, very stable financially. We're very proud also to have won 3 Pinnacle Awards from SAP, one of which is for our tokenization solution in the SAP arena. We're the only SAP vendor partner that's been awarded a Pinnacle Award in the secure electronic payment space, and very proud of that accomplishment. We have over a 99% customer retention rate, and we are extremely focused on our customer satisfaction. We have a dedicated client support team. Our support group does not install our products. They do not provide consulting services. They do not sell the products. They are not admin. They are dedicated to supporting our customers with their needs, supporting Paymetric services, supporting their back-end integration systems, etc. Paymetric is a level 1 PCI DSS compliant service provider. We only offer SaaS or on-demand solutions. Our environment is a multi-tenant SaaS environment, meaning everyone is on the same code base. Therefore, everyone benefits at the same time to any enhancements to our system, to any security patches. Any updates happen automatically for every one of our clients. There's no need for you to wait weeks or months in a queue for us to get to your individual instance and update it. Paymetric solutions are certified by SAP. The tokenization and payment solutions that we offer are proprietary. We're not white labeling or reselling someone else's solutions. That means we can troubleshoot them, we can upgrade them, we can enhance them ourselves. And our tokenization solutions are patented. We have secured patents for various aspects of our tokenization. All right, so solution features. Many of you have seen a lot of this already. This goes into our overall solution feature set. I won't go into those in any great detail. I'll just read the headers here. So we've talked about some of our certifications. We are very strong on security. We take it very seriously. We do handle multiple payment types as well as provide support for global processing. We have partners that can process payments in almost every part of the world. We can help you process level 1, level 2, and level 3 consumer or purchase or corporate card transactions, help you with alternative payment types like PayPal and Bill Me Later, and we're focused on the performance of our systems in our data centers. We strive to ensure 100% uptime, and we do ensure that our solutions are available, that we have failover capabilities if need be. We have clustered databases, we have load balance systems, trying to ensure that when you need to access our services, they're always available to you. And some of the challenges we'll help you address: managing your payments, multiple types, multiple currencies, geographies, etc. We've talked a lot today about helping you minimize your business risk around data security and PCI compliance, but certainly will help you in other areas such as being able to reconcile your payments, your data, things of that nature. We're always striving to improve our technology and integration methods. Operationally, we're going to help you improve your workflows within your ERP environment, improve or close some of the gaps in SAP's workflows. And because you're using a SaaS solution and you do not have to buy hardware and maintain hardware, nor do you have to do database backups or hire employees specifically to maintain the system, we're going to help you in reducing the costs for having a solution like this that can help you secure your electronic payments. Again, award-winning company. Won't go over these in too much detail. We've won awards from SAP. We were a global Red Herring 100 award winner. Very proud of that accomplishment, and have been recognized by several other entities within not only the IT world, but the financial services world. And with that, we've come to the end of the PowerPoint itself. If you need to contact me directly, this is my contact information, and it looks like we've had just a couple of questions. So let me just quickly look at those. So sorry, one question, and I apologize for using an acronym so many times. Someone asked, what is a SAC or an SAQ form? That's a self-assessment questionnaire. That's what SAQ stands for, and that refers to the forms that each merchant, each company must fill out and answer in order to attest their compliance with the PCI regulations or the PCI requirements. So a self-assessment questionnaire is something that you must fill out annually, and which form you get to use is based in large part on how you handle credit card information or electronic payments. So there's several forms. Some have as few as 14 questions, others as many as 263. So obviously the amount of time that it takes to answer each of those items would vary, but that's what SAQ stands for. And there was a question as to whether or not we'd be covering embedded chip for card present information. We didn't go over that in this presentation specifically. We did have one graphic that showed the front and back of a card, and you could see the chip on that card. In the same vein that we're trying to help you secure credit card information from a magnetic track on the back or being hand keyed in, you would want to focus on similar security with a EMV or a chip and pin type card. In many cases, the personal account number for those type of cards would never be transmitted through your ERP system anyway. Those tend to only be used or mostly used for retail type transactions, a card present, where perhaps I as a consumer walk in and I put my card in a terminal device at the register or at the counter. I type in my PIN, and then there's a connection directly from that device to the processor, rather than it routing through an ERP system. You could certainly still use that card account online. I could log on to a merchant's website and hand key in my account number. In that case, it would flow through either the e-commerce system and or the ERP system of the merchant, and you'd have the same concerns about securing that data as you would if it was a non-chip and PIN card. So I believe those are the only questions that we've been asked today. I want to thank you very much for attending. I appreciate your time today. And if you do have questions, again, my contact information is listed here. We hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks very much.